Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Hello, you made the trip to the Eugene Cannabis TV show. Here, we got DanK here, and we got our friend Bud Savage on the show as a co-host, and we appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you for having me.
You bet. And we've got some stories to talk about, and even a current event of interest. So, but last weekend we had a great get-together. In fact, two at the same building. It was so busy there. We had a Oregon Green-Free meeting in one end of the building, and the other end was the coalition of groups working on crafts to benefit all the
Eugene Hemp Fest.
Hemp Fest, all the different groups.
Empire.
And it's a great idea, thanks to our friend Esther and others. They're making crafts that will be sold, and then the proceeds from that will go to the different organizations that are donating the time to put the crafts together. So it's a real cooperative effort, and it's a great way for people to network, and it's just really a win-win.
Funds for the cause.
Yeah, yeah. So it was really fun, and it was interesting. Even though we accidentally double booked the building, there was actually an interchange where people would come from one deal to go to the other, see what was going on. So we had that going too. So that was great.
It was nice.
It was nice. It was really good. So, so there's more of that going on, and you need to get into the loop. Send us an email, and I'll let you know what's going on and the times and such. The main thing I wanted to talk about real quick though was our Halloween Stoners Halloween Ball benefit for voter power. We've just kind of thrown it together at the last minute, but it's going to come. It's really coming together fast. And Liquid Platinum, we haven't got a confirmation, but it's pretty well tied up. Liquid Platinum will be there, and that's our friends that are a Grateful Dead cover band.
Oh.
And they'll be back by popular demand. Everybody loves them, and they're great people too. So that'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be on October 28th. And starts at 8 p.m. It's open to the public, family friendly, non-alcohol. There'll be a medicating area separate so that you can bring your family and families can come. So, and we're gonna have a costume contest,
door prizes, swag, all that good stuff. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and also a cannabis costume contest, which would be my favorite. So it'll be a lot of fun. So put that on your calendar. So we've got the, we were just talking about that before the camera here. We have the story on, cannabis could ease pain.
Could ease pain of post-traumatic stress disorder. It says cannabis could help ease symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, scientists say, as long as it's administered early enough. Researchers from Haifa University in Israel found that cannabinoids, the active compounds in cannabis, blocked feelings of anxiety in rats after they experienced a stressful episode. However, it was only effective if it was administered in the first 24 hours after the traumatic event. We found that the window of opportunity during which administering synthetic marijuana helps deal with symptoms simulating PTSD in rats, said study leader Dr. Irit Akarav. Rats were used because they have a similar physiological reactions to traumatic stress as humans. Interesting. I didn't think we were that close to rats. Cannabis is a Class B drug in Britain and is illegal to use or sell. Regular use has been linked with an increased risk of developing psychotic illness such as schizophrenia. However, there are a handful of cannabinoid medicines derived from the cannabis plant that have been licensed by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency in the UK. In the first part of the study, published in the Journal of Neuropsychopharmacology, the researchers exposed a group of rats to extreme stress. They observed that the rats displayed symptoms resembling PTSD in humans, such as enhanced startle reflex and impaired learning. The rats were then divided into 4 groups. One was given no cannabis at all, The second was given cannabis injection 2 hours after being exposed. The third group 24 hours, and the fourth group 48 hours after the traumatic exposure. A week later, the researchers examined the rats and found that the group that had not been administered marijuana and the group that got the injection 48 hours after experiencing trauma continued to display PTSD symptoms as well as a high level of anxiety. Sounds like timing is the key there.
Yeah, it's interesting too because that's from Israel. And I remember reading a story several years ago that the Israel Army was going to try experimenting with medical marijuana for treating PTSD with their veterans. And then I've heard, I think it was a year ago or something, I'd heard that it worked out well and they're still doing it, so I'm trying to say. So
yeah, Israel is very progressive in their cannabis research now,
yeah,
and it's very promising.
Yeah.
It gives me hope.
That's
anyways.
interesting. So what's the bottom line? Is it good or not good? Or
The bottom line is it's good.
Yeah.
We've always known that, but for PTSD, within 24 hours after a traumatic, stressful event. So I say our soldiers should be over there smoking some cannabis.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's, speaking of PTSD and stress, your second sheet there is, I think, you know, the fee changes. Thank you, State of Oregon. You know, in fact, I wanted to comment a little bit on this too because I've been with the OMA program, the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program, ever since the inception. In fact, I gathered signatures to get it on the ballot back in '97. So I've been there the whole route. I saw it come. I saw it in effect. When that law passed, I thought to myself, this is going to be interesting because here we are, the state bureaucracy now is going to have to administer the program, and I know they aren't going to want anything to do with it. They wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, but they got any choice because now it's a law and they have to. Well, now we're here at 2011, and as I look back and I'm thinking, well, you know, I think I was right because their behavior has really amplified that they don't want it, any part of it, they don't care about it, they're doing what they have to, you know. Look at the very beginning. I can't remember the first administrator's name, but Kelly.
I was actually in Washington at the time.
Yeah,
so.
Kelly something. Anyway, she was incredible. She was an advocate for the patients. She was actually in charge of the program. She was perfect. She was great. And then the Oregon Health Plan Administrator, Health System Administrator, and I think his name in a minute, fired her because she wasn't keeping up the quota and getting the job done, so he fired her. So actually what he did was, and here's the truth, he did not give her the resources she needed to do the job, and then he fired her because she wasn't doing the job, you know. And it's been like that, you know, and it just goes on, and I can tell you story after story. But anyway, and this is the latest, so here we are now. Now this isn't, we can't blame the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program for this. This is the state legislature mandated them to do that. They voted on this
themselves.
So we can't get on OMP for the fee changes and increases, even though those are the ones that we're dealing with, but they were mandated to do this. But however, they did have some flexibility, and here's the one part of flexibility they had, and we asked for them and asked for it and asked for it, and they just turned their shoulders. We asked for a sunset clause. In other words, for this fee increase to go away in 1 or 2 years. In other words, if they wanted to continue, then they'd have to go back and look at it again and do it. But no, they didn't even put a sunset clause. So they said, screw the patients, essentially, in effect, you know. So here's the increases. Tell them about it, bud.
Well, effective October 1st, that's the first of this month, 2011. Cardholder application and renewal fee is now $200.
100% increase.
100% increase. Reduced application and annual renewal fee for persons receiving SNAP, food stamp, and for OHP cardholders is $100.
That's from 20 to 100.
Reduced application and annual renewal fee for persons receiving SSI, $20. Now that's
the way it was.
That's the way it was. So at least they didn't kill us there. Fee for replacement registry cards, $100. Yeah. 20 for those patients who qualify for the $20 reduced application fee. I don't like that one.
Well, I don't either. And the reason for that, they said, that is because they're having rampant problems with people saying they lost a card and then getting a free replacement, and then they give it to their friends so they can use it. That's what they claim. And that's the reason that they did that, so that people wouldn't be putting in fraudulent lost cards. Well, what about the poor welfare mom that can't make ends meet and loses her card, and then she's got to come up with $100 bucks,
or,
you know?
Or her grower rips her off, she has to find another grower, so she has to submit another application at that point.
Right, or yeah, change growers. That's the other. Then that's another fee. That's a $50. Then that's a $50 fee if you have to change growers. I know.
That is an all-new one too. The grow site registration fee on applications where the patient is not his or her own grower, $50.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, it infuriates me, is that they were making money on this program before the fee increases. They were making money. And now, of course, they're making even more. Cash cow, you know, and it's just so disgusting, and it's so wrong, and it's just
they'll take our money and let the feds mess with us.
Oh yeah, all that, and they won't. Yeah, and they won't even. They won't let us. They won't pick up PTSD as a condition. There's only one state in the union that has PTSD. Did you know that? There's only one state in the union that has PTSD.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, New Mexico. It's the only state in the union that has PTSD as a medical condition for medical marijuana in the United States. So. And we've tried, I think, 3 times formally, and they just, no, you know. So they can't help, so they're not out to help the patients, but they're sure out there to bleed them, you know. So it's really irritating. So that's the system we have, and we have 3 legalization initiatives that are up, and we'll be talking about them more on the next segment. All we can do is just keep trying and keep fighting, you know.
That's right, and if you're not registered to vote, get out and register.
That's right. Club 420.
420 Club.
420 Club. 420 Club, that's with a K and .net. Bud will help you out, and a good resource for finding whatever you need. If you need information on how to cook with it, if you need information on what do you do with it now that they're 10 feet tall and starting to fall over, now what do I do?
Curing, growing,
everything.
Harvesting,
yeah.
Learning how the plant matures, as far as watching your trichomes, watching your hairs, watching the buds swell. There's a wealth of information. And there's also calendar events for everything that goes on in the community in Eugene.
Great service, great. So check it out. That's 420 Club, KLUB.net. We're going to get out of here. So thanks so much for stopping in, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks again for
One love.
A growing debate now over the issue of medical marijuana. The feds cracking down on pot shops in California for the first time in 15 years. The Department of Justice saying the state law is being used as a cover for drug dealers who set up elaborate trafficking rings without helping sick patients at all. Casey Stiegel live from our Los Angeles newsroom. And Casey, I guess it's reefer madness there in California. What prompted the crackdown?
Well, Greg, partly it is because of the Obama administration. You know, that administration has said that it would toughen its stance when it comes to medical marijuana laws in this country, which is why the Justice Department sent out a memo to some of these pot shops saying that they were going to, in fact, prosecute them because they are in violation of federal drug laws. Remember, just because pot is considered legal in some states for medicinal purposes with a doctor's prescription, it is still illegal to sell or grow it under federal law. So now the U.S. Attorney's Office issuing dozens of letters to dispensaries here in California, giving them 45 days to close up shop and targeting those within 1,000 feet of a school, park, or playground first.
I understand there are people in California who believe marijuana stores should be allowed to exist, but I trust that these same people will all agree we don't need retail marijuana outlets across the street from playgrounds and schools and Little League fields.
Now, the feds say that they, of course, have compassion for people who are ill, especially with chronic illnesses that use this drug for its intended purpose with a prescription. But, Greg, they say the reality is a number of folks are going about getting these prescriptions when they don't really need them, and therefore this is translated into more recreational use of the drug, also concerned that it is falling into the hands of minors, and that is the reason primarily for this crackdown, Greg.
Other states could be next, Casey?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, 15 other states in this country have similar laws allowing you to have medical marijuana, again, so long as it's used for medicinal purposes. Now we're hearing reports that officials in Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington have been warned of similar crackdowns. In fact, the feds say they will even go after landlords who are caught renting their space to dispensaries and also leaning on banks to close the accounts of dispensary owners. Meantime, medical marijuana advocates say that this is a violation of patient rights. They say this is another example of the federal government putting its nose where it does not belong. And they also allege, Greg, that some of these cash-strapped states could stand to lose millions of dollars in tax revenue that medical marijuana sales generate, and also the number of jobs that this controversial industry contributes to the economy as well. Greg?
Wow, haven't seen so much talk about pot since Cheech and Chong. Casey Stiegel, thanks very much. Heather?
You got it.
Are you tired of following all the rules? Ready to let loose? Have a little fun? Sounds like you need to. Get high. And with Narcomex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, you can. Narcomex values your business. That's why we're your #1 supplier of drugs, and you're our #1 consumer. These billions can't be wrong. We work hard for your business and have killed not 1, not 2, but 3 Mexican police and 2 journalists just to keep you high with that very joint. Why, our commitment to keeping you supplied has killed over 17,000 people right next door. Traffickers, soldiers, journalists, prosecutors, you name it. We're that passionate about your business. We've even begun to destroy some of your favorite tropical beach destinations. Because if you smoke enough at home, you don't even need a beach. But don't legalize it or grow it at home. Let us do the work for you. Sure, consumers boycotted evil companies, but there's no need to boycott Narcomex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, also offering heroin, meth, and cocaine. Narcomex Incorporated. Live a little, and forget others won't.
Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Why these people who want to do so much good for everyone, who call themselves governments and this and that, why them say you must not use the herb? You see? And we check that and we can't find, we just see them just say, no, you mustn't use it because...
And those are the glandular trichomes in the inflorescence of the plant, which contain all the chemicals that we're interested in for making medicine.
Probably one of the most fascinating cases is a gentleman with the glioblastoma multiforme brain tumor. Very deadly tumor. This tumor, from diagnosis, untreated, the average survival is just 3 months. Fully treated with radiation, surgery, and chemotherapy is about 12 months. So this gentleman is a middle-aged man who began using cannabis at the time of his diagnosis. He's been very consistent in using cannabis on a multiple-time daily basis now for 7 years without any signs of recurrence.
Faced with this rapidly changing scenario, the Drug Enforcement Administration is trying to modify its official position to allow pharmaceutical companies to market THC without appearing to contradict all the negative information on marijuana they've been propagating for decades.
All available research has concluded that marijuana is dangerous to our health.
The DEA now recognizes the medical qualities of THC while trying to shift the blame for the prohibition of marijuana to the possible damage caused by the smoke.
How about the pill form? That's legalized already.
The pill form is legal for 2 or 3 things. Nausea and vomiting of chemotherapy, AIDS wasting, and also for certain kinds of neuropathic pain.
The holy grail for the pharmaceutical industry, and really for the federal government too, is to find the next billion-dollar pharmaceutical, the next billion-dollar drug. And the pharmaceutical industry now knows that these drugs are going to be cannabinoids. They know that the medicinal qualities are there to cure all kinds of medical problems. But I can tell you that the whole plant is uniquely effective. I've yet to find a person in my practice who prefers the prescription pure THC over the natural plant. That just is unheard of in the patients.
Cannabidiol, also known as CBD, is a non-psychoactive component of cannabis that gives the sedative effect to the high experienced. Amongst its numerous functions, CBD has been shown to have anti-inflammatory and analgesic effects. It helps fight diabetes, bacterial infections, and malignant tumors. This compound is also a nerve protectant and has well-documented antipsychotic and anxiety-reducing effects.
There's quite a lot of CBD in that particular one as well, cannabidiol, which is another cannabinoid, a non-psychoactive cannabinoid, which we think is actually a very important component of the medicine. We're fascinated by this stuff, which has tremendous potential as anti-inflammatory, but also rather surprisingly as antipsychotic.
So hold on, you're telling me that CBD could be a treatment for psychosis?
Isn't that ironic? With all the sort of tremendous publicity around the link with cannabis smoking and the potential of increasing the risk of psychosis, here we have a component of the plant which itself is antipsychotic.
The cannabis plant has been bred for decades to maximize the amount of THC. That gives the plant the strongest psychoactive effect for the least amount of product. Now, in doing this, we've bred the other cannabinoids out of the plant, or down to minuscule amounts. And each of those cannabinoids that has been bred down to minuscule amounts has its own medicinal quality, medicinal properties. So we've lost a lot of those other properties. Myself and a group of doctors have been asking growers to bring back CBD into the plant because cannabidiol, along with some of these other minor cannabinoids such as cannabigerol and cannabichromine, have shown to have a lot of anti-cancer properties.
Tetrahydrocannabivarin, or THCV, has been found in significant amounts mostly in South African and some Thai strains of grass. High concentrations of THCV will make the high come on quicker, but last for less time. This chemical compound may eventually prove to be a useful treatment for type 2 diabetes. THCV has been shown to have a protective, preventative effect against malignant tumors. Cannabichromine, or CBC, is a low-level cannabinoid. Though little research has been done, scientists believe CBC may have an antidepressant effect, as well as the ability to reduce inflammation. CBC strongly inhibits tumor growth in leukemia and breast cancer. Faced with all these new discoveries, one is brought to question what stops marijuana from being legalized for medical use all across the country. And it's not only doctors calling for legalization.
I was opposed to the medical marijuana initiative because it created a morphodom. You've got marijuana that's legal and you've got marijuana that's illegal. And therefore you've got a built-in problem. It's how do you determine who's legal and who isn't? And, of course, with it being illegal, it's a built-in government price signal. So as long as it's illegal, there's going to be money in it. If it was decriminalized, everybody could grow in their backyard. Nobody would go by ripping them off at gunpoint or any other thing because it wouldn't be worth anything.
We wouldn't have to worry about people that were illegally transporting marijuana. We would know. You would have a license from the state. We'd be in contact with you coming down Highway 101, for example, with a truckload of marijuana. If we were to stop you for a minor traffic violation and detect the odor of marijuana, you can simply produce credentials indicating that you have a right to do this, that you're sanctioned by the state to make this happen, or licensed by the state. It would be very, very beneficial to law enforcement.
After becoming a permanent fixture of the urban panorama in California, Oregon is beginning to open the first public venues for medical marijuana smokers.
We're at the Cannabis Cafe today. This is a place where cardholders can come and medicate out of public view. So I have patients that are on stage 5 of cancer. We have people that were using AIDS medicines, the cocktails that are they just destroy your organs and everything else. People were expecting them to die. Their families were just ready for them to go away. But then they started using medical marijuana and their appetites came back. They left some of those pharmaceuticals that were so harsh. Many times I've gotten calls from people who were at OHSU or at the Veterans Administration Hospital here in Portland, and they couldn't medicate out of public view. They had gone through procedures for 4 to 6 hours, and because of that, they needed a place to use their medicine. They had to go to an alley. They had to go to the backseat of their car. That was unsafe. And so we created this place for them, for us, a niche where we could use our medicine out of public view and enjoy each other. We're social creatures. There's nothing wrong with that.
But at the federal level, they're still clinging to a more archaic view.
Is there a better way, and some people have suggested looking into a system of legalization that might be effective in stemming the tide of drugs from Mexico and then the border wars and the immigration problems from Mexico? Have you considered this as a possibility?
I think anybody who looks at this problem considers it, and ultimately when you look at it, rejects it.
Let me ask you about
too many people, I'm sorry, but there are too many individuals, both parents and others, who have lost their lives to drugs to give a ready answer that it should be legalized.
Name me a couple of parents who've lost their lives to marijuana.
Can't.
Exactly, you can't, because that hadn't happened. And there hadn't been a wave, because that's been a constant thing in America since Harry Anslinger, because African Americans used it and saw it as something that was crippling and gave it to the Latin Americans and put an ethnic tone to it. When have we, is there some time we're going to see that we ought to prioritize meth crack, cocaine, and heroin, and deal with the drugs that the American culture is really being affected by and lives are being lost.
That's not to say that we can't use cannabis as medicine, but as a plant, its quality, its purity, its strength, its consistency, it's difficult to regulate. And because of that, it's not ever likely to be reinstated into the pharmacopoeia. I think the greatest hurdle is that we need to get Congress to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act. It's just absurd that cannabis is still there. It has enormous medicinal value. It's not addictive. It doesn't have a significant withdrawal syndrome. And it certainly is not really a menace to society.
The anti-cancer qualities of marijuana appear to have been known to the U.S. government for over 30 years. In a 1974-75 Medical College of Virginia study led by Dr. Albert Munson, they discovered that THC slowed the growth of 3 kinds of cancer: lung, breast, and virus-induced leukemia. The Virginia study was shut down, and all further cannabis tumor research was abandoned.
Just as I said, the number of times that all of the available literature on marijuana's safety and effectiveness has been reviewed by august government-appointed clinical bodies and have come back with the same conclusion, that it's safe and it's useful, and that information gets ignored.
The problem remains, though, that nobody in Congress wants to be labeled soft on drugs. But as the states begin to legalize or continue to legalize the medicinal use of cannabis, I believe there will be a tipping point where the nation will be ready to change the law and allow people their right to use cannabis freely.